Hey, it's John and Mike, brew-shoots.com. I can't believe it. It's coming up the end of Q2 in the Brew Dudes calendar, which means we have to talk about the outcomes of our Jar of Destiny beers, right? Yeah, she's cheering. We did the announcement and then it's like, we'll talk about it later. But here we are. We're back. We've got beers. This is Mike's Jar of Destiny pick. And it is from the BJCP style number 2B. B. This is the International Amber Lager.
Excellent.
Right? Okay, great. I got all the specifics out. So tell me more about, like, isn't this kind of like a Modelo?
No, well, actually, I thought it was. When we first shot it, I said something like that. I said when we first shot it, I believe I said at one point, wait, is that like Yuengling? And I was like, no, that's not. It must be more like Modelo. Actually, yes, this is Yuengling. That's like one of the examples in the BJCP. The interesting thing, we've said this before, International Amber Lager. What does that even mean? Right. Aside from it being Amber Lager International, but it just doesn't really, it just, like, well, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, what, anyway, I can't wait till we start.
From a certain point of view, where is your international really?
It'll all make more sense when we start doing Commonwealth beers. So, International Amber Lager. So this is very much like Yuengling. If you're not familiar with Yuengling, it's like one of the oldest American breweries here in the Northeast. Yuengling is down in Pennsylvania, and people used to mule this stuff back and forth quite a bit, and people get really excited back here for Yuengling. Recently, within the last 4 years or so, they've started actually distributing it this way, and people went crazy for it. And now, like, its popularity has faded because you've got access to it. But anyway, it's still a great beer. I still sort of liken the whole category into that, Modelo. It's not quite like Vienna Lager is its own thing. But think of it as like just trying to do that, but with some slight differences.
Okay, bring it on.
So the big thing for this is that this is an adjunct-based lager.
Yes.
So in my recipe, there's some corn. I'll give you the whole recipe. Down below will be the full recipe with both English and metric units, imperial, metric, whatever. But so I went a little traditional. When I was researching this, you can get onto Yuengling's website and get a little bit of flavor for it. But I found several clone recipes, tried to figure out what I wanted. But I also knew what I wanted to drink when I read the descriptions. I wanted something, you want it to be a little bit soft, a little bit crackery, very mild on the character malts in like a caramelly type of way, but it should be there to balance that whole thing out. It shouldn't be really dry, shouldn't be super crisp, but it should be very drinkable, very approachable, and it should be deep copper color, right?
I think you hit that.
Oh, thank you. Well, end of video. So this is how I went for it. I did a blend of a lot of recipes I found were mostly Pilsner malt and then some like crystal or caramel, like a little bit deeper caramel. So what I went for in this was I wanted to make sure I could get that very special bready character that I think only comes with Vienna malt.
Yeah. Yep.
So I did 4.5 pounds of Pilsner malt. I think that's important for like that crackery character. And then 4.5 pounds of Vienna malt is my basic blend. 2 pounds of flaked corn. Our experience recently with flaked corn adjunct, so I really wasn't afraid of going for 2 pounds there to help dry it out and create a little bit of that corny thing in the background, because this is like a mass-produced lager after all. And this is where I deviated a little bit just to try to, I was looking at several ingredients, trying to figure out how am I going to get the color and a little bit of that sweetness at the same time. Then I discovered this malt that I had never used before, and that's the whole point of Jar of Destiny. Cara Crystal Wheat Malt.
Oh, what?
Yes, baby. Yeah, this is actually relatively...
You made that up.
No, I couldn't believe it. Not only that, and I actually found it in a couple similar recipes. I think on the Yuengling website there's a reference to something
Cara wheat?
So Cara Crystal Wheat Malt from Brace. Okay, it's 55 love.
Okay,
right, and then just to make sure I got the color adjustment when I was using software, I used, because this is what I have available to me. I just used 2 ounces of Midnight Wheat. Which is like 550 love, just to make sure I got the color I wanted. Classic hops for this as you can imagine. Classic hops for Yuengling being a cluster. So I did 20 grams, not quite a full ounce, for 60 minutes of cluster 7% alpha acid for only about 15 IBUs. And then I finished it off with half an ounce of Cascade. Just because I think you put that in there, and I think that's on the Yuengling website too. There's some right. It gives you that little bit of like, oh, this is American.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it's international amber lager,
Sure.
don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I was really trying to go for, when I looked at all the examples, I thought this is the one I want to go for, a Yuengling clone, because people go for it. And the yeast that I used is, some people use like California ale yeast or things like that. I went for, because I wanted to go dry yeast, I used Saf Lager, the 3470 strain, because I'm having great luck with it, and I know I'm really getting more and more comfortable with it and how to make a great lager with it. So
awesome.
So that's the beer. I step mashed this because I want to have good fermentability. I step mashed this at 148, 158, 168 for 30, 20, and 10 minutes respectively.
Yeah.
My original gravity on this was 1052. And yes, 1052, and it finished at 1009 for a total ABV of 5.6, and that's sort of what you're going for in this category.
That's right.
It's actually just a touch higher than I wanted, but you're not going to notice drinking it unless I told you it was 5.6 instead of like 5.4.
Oh my goodness, I can tell.
And I think that's all the things that anybody really wants to hear about for recipe and process. But
why don't you show the glass?
I'm going to show the glass
to the people.
I need to wet my.
And you definitely need to drink that. So I will say that on the nose, it's malt forward, a little bit of hop essence there, but really kind of that wonderful, bready, biscuity malt on the nose. A little bit of corn, but it's all there. Now, it's funny.
Tastes like a
it's there.
Produced lager.
That's right. Because I have Yuengling on the mind.
Yep.
And this is like a step up. This is like an improvement to the Yuengling that we've had.
Yep.
I remember even when people were muling that from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts, that you'd read on boards that people would say like, "Yeah, great, you can have it because we don't like that beer. That beer is like swill to us." Yeah.
Interestingly, I have a really good friend of mine who is originally from Pennsylvania. And grew up drinking a lot of Yuengling.
Yeah.
And now that they've opened distribution, they actually brew it in 2 different places.
Okay.
If you look really closely at the label, there's the stuff that's brewed in PA. Then I think then the other source of it, there's a brewery in New York that they brew it at. And the 2 beers are slightly different. And the one that comes from PA, the original, has just a slight sweetness edge to it.
Okay.
And my buddy shared these 2 beers with me once. I was at his house for like a Christmas party a long time ago, and you could actually really taste the difference. So in my mind, I was trying to go for that slight touch of sweetness edge, which is why when I found this Cara Crystal wheat malt, I was like, that's what I want.
That might be what it is.
So just to get that little bit of something, as opposed to completely drying it out to having it just be a dry amber lager of some sort, which I think is really more Modelo.
Yeah, no, I hear
right?
Yeah,
right.
I find, and I'm
or Dos Equis, right?
Yes, I'm going to say this, that my memory of drinking Yuengling is that the corn, they max out the corn.
Sure.
I don't know what their grain bill is, and I'm not going to speculate, but based on what I taste, it's very thin. It's very adjunct-y tasting to me.
Yep.
This is kind of like an elevated version recipe of it because of the Vienna malt.
Yeah.
And you know that I'm a big fan of that from the Vienna lagers that I brew.
Right. When I first tasted it out of the fermenter, I was like, oh, it was like, oh, that Vienna is like right there on point. Yeah. If you wanted it to be drier, a little bit more, even more approachable than this, I could see after having maybe 3 pints of this, that very subtle sweetness character might just become overwhelming a little bit.
Sure.
So if you wanted to do away with that, go all Pilsner malt and then color adjust with a little bit more of the midnight wheat or something.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to lose some of the color with the Vienna. But if you took it out, not a lot, but you might lose some.
But would
of
you
it.
have I would actually add in the corn.
Yeah, or go more corn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pull out some of the, substitute some more corn for some of the Vienna, right, to lighten it.
Well, I think this is a great example of to be.
Yeah, and I
For
think
sure.
I think there's a great. This is why the Jar of Destiny is such a great exercise, because I'm trying in my mind to like line this up with like a Vienna, and then like
Yeah.
like a Dos Equis,
Yes.
and where they all live together, because they're so close, but you can't put your finger on distinct differences when you really dig in to a recipe, a process, and some examples to the BJCP.
Yep.
I guess those guys make some sense after all.
I think this is a good hybrid between an all malt beer
Uh-huh.
and one that is macro and
Yes.
adjunct forward,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe another month in the keg lagering
Yes.
Would-
Clear it up. Yep.
would dry it out
Yeah.
a little bit more.
Awesome. So, of course, the Jar of Destiny is all about choosing a wooden nickel out of the old hat, and then trying your best to, proceed to brew an example that is accordance to those guidelines. And I think you hit it, man. I think that again, we're drinking it like it's young, and
Yeah.
next week we're gonna drink mine. And mine needs, I think, more time because I had a Belgian triple. Thank you very much, Jar. In any case, I think with some time, certainly like maybe mid July or something like that. This is when you bottle up and you throw it into a competition and see what other people think.
Yep.
All good stuff. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed the path of enlightenment as we've followed this down for the Jar of Destiny, learning more about the International Amber Lager category or style of beers. If you have things you want to say, you want to comment on this, please leave them in the comments below on the old YouTube video. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe to our channel because we do put up homebrew versions of different videos every single week. For John and Mike, brew-dudes.com. Brew on.
Cheers.